Hello everyone and welcome to week 5 of the course schedule and tentative plan of work. I'll be launching next week with this course schedule here. You'll see this weeks 1 through 4 at least disappear, and it will say weeks 5 through well, I have it scheduled for 5 through 8. It usually goes 4, 8, 12 through the 3 sections, but I typically do have the next week extended on there, so it'll be weeks 5 through 9 on there. But the week 5 overview, everyone, I got the vast majority of students, I got submissions on the final drafts. I answered as many of the things as I could, and I stuck with going through and marking on those summary outlines and reposting some of them, even with the audio messages included on ones that I could. Especially those that had any issues of publishing those. I am still, over the next couple of days, putting the rest of those grades in. I think I have about 90% of them done and posted. Remember that the drafting stage on these, the rough draft portion, that is peer review in terms of the feedback on there, and then credit base overall. The ASC tutoring is available for students who need to cover more things on there. If you need more sentence level items to be addressed, I know that a couple of students had things where your feedback on there didn't publish. I think those are all worked out. If they weren't, they will be worked out in the next couple of days. But I think the majority of those things are all published and readable. So. And as I said, I added some audio ones to students who I thought needed a little bit more to address a little bit more. But overall, the majority of those things in those final drafts, the ones that had errors, most of those were still dealing with where the complication was and whether or not you had a general to specific intro, minor points of those. But just remember that now that the final drafts are in, over the next 1 to 2 weeks, I will be publishing reports for every single student on these final drafts for the memoir. And once yours is published in there, once you see that your feedback file is readable and it's up for that memoir final draft, you will have 2 weeks from that time to make revisions and submit to a rewrite folder that you'll be able to get credit back on anything that you missed. And that will be throughout the entirety of that 2 weeks you'll have. So then this week, that will allow everyone to address any types of errors that they still had from their feedback, whether it was from peer review or from me, that comes from the summary outline or the final draft, primarily the final draft on these. The summary and outline now for rhetorical analysis is the next assignment this week. I'm going to talk briefly about what the component pieces are there and what the approach is for rhetorical analysis. Here on week 5, your readings, I only had people with 3rd and 4th edition as far as I can tell. If you did have 2nd edition, let me know and I'll adjust this. But as far as I can tell, everybody's is some version of 3rd and 4th. So chapters 11 and 12 here, and then 12 and 23 review week 4 readings. That's because some of these kind of overlap in terms of the content development, also obviously design, edit, and revision. Make sure that you're covering those. So this weekend coming up, the submission is already completed for the memoir final draft. We're now into rhetorical analysis summary outline. So the Dropbox for this piece on here, we have the Dropbox open, full instructions from here down to here. There's a video on here that the breakdown piece of an always add. This piece on here will have it's not private. You click on it, it takes you externally now for the video itself, but it's a video that I use. It's an ad from Always, an awareness campaign that I use as an example piece to show you guys how to break down a rhetorical analysis. Now, your chapter talks about rhetorical analysis referring to a number of different things of looking at devices. The specific way that I want you guys focusing on these is broken down here in the summary and outline portion. I want you to focus on 3 primary things with this, and that is focusing on 3 rhetorical devices that are used in the ad. I want you to remember that there's a distinction between the the intended appeal and the device itself. If you haven't done the reading yet in the textbook, make sure that you do so you get a better grasp of what we're talking about when we refer to rhetoric, the type of language that we use that refers to these different things. And then on here, the portion that says the first portion, rhetorical analysis, the summary and the outline, just like with the memoir, slight difference here is that in the body paragraphs of a summary of the rhetorical analysis outline, in the memoir, you were doing it as a first-person narration. Now this is moving into a third-person only objective analysis, and this is essentially what we're doing with the rest of our content for this and then your argumentation piece. So I'm gonna say on here, I want you guys to avoid anything that's not just a commercial product, you know, a commercial for a product. Try and think of, it can be awareness campaign based too, like you could do the ASPCA commercials and things like that, those types of awareness pieces. If you want to write about those, they are awash with a great deal of rhetoric in there. But the main thing would be steer clear of the political ads for right now. Students tend to get too confused and follow through more of the line of argument as opposed to the devices being used to make the argument in those. So I prefer students stay here with those commercial ads for a product or just an awareness campaign. Each student should select a television commercial or online ad and offer a thesis statement that explains what the commercial's intention is, what their argument, buy their stuff. It's typically to buy the product. Analyze the rhetorical devices and the intended audience for the intended appeals for the intended audience. In essence, who is the commercial intended for? What is the commercial trying to convince the viewer of? And what rhetorical devices were used to persuade the intended audience? If you've not completed the readings, as I said, make sure you do. You'll have an issue understanding this if you haven't completed the reading. The warning on here in the second asterisk: do not go to the internet for ideas about writing these types of papers. There are many sites and forums that offer ideas and suggestions for rhetorical analysis, these topics, etc. Students who utilize them rather than doing the reading on the book or following this lesson often find themselves in the plagiarism category because you end up pulling things from those. Also, we are talking about these primary focal points of logos, ethos, and pathos. We are not talking about Kairos or any of those other ones. These are the three that I want you to be focused on, right? Now, when we're focusing on these things, we are not talking about writing body paragraphs about the logos, ethos, and pathos. We are talking about writing body paragraphs about the different devices and whether or not they make logical appeals, ethos appeals, or pathos appeals. Logos, logic ones, are ones where appeals to the reader or viewer are made based on logical statements, facts, that kind of stuff. Ethos is when we make appeals to viewers or readers based off of credibility, so maybe appealing by using an expert. If the product in your commercial maybe it's a medication, and if it is a medication, then maybe there are doctors in the ad and they are trying to appeal to the audience. That would be a version of an ethos appeal by using the doctor. The doctor itself would be the rhetorical device in the ad, right? The appeal, the intended appeal to the intended audience would be an ethos appeal. Pathos, this is appeal to people's emotions. So if I'm trying to convince somebody that my product is the best in a line of wellness, let's say it's some type of a wellness piece, and my ad is insisting that the thing you don't want to do is put yourself or family at risk by using a cheaper or less effective or efficient product. Well, if I'm doing that and I'm appealing to your emotions about your own wellness and your family's wellness and safety and well-being, that would be appealing to your emotions about those things. Okay? If I used a doctor to do that, that would be an ethos appeal. In any event, whatever the device is, if I'm using the device of emotional language, for instance, that might be the case. Most of you are going to find that your devices include things like imagery. Imagery is a typical one that we use where you show a series of images and those images are supposed to appeal to the audience. And the reason I say don't focus on a single body paragraph that just has one of these types of appeals. Don't write a paragraph just about logos, pathos, or ethos. Instead, focus on a device, Because if you have imagery as a device, well, imagery is a series of images. And if all of those images make different types of appeals, you can have one image like an ASPCA ad of a sick, lonely cat, and the appeal there is emotional. That's a pathos appeal. That's one of the images. And then you could have another image of a group of experts treating and dealing with animals. That would be more along the lines of an ethos appeal, particularly if the doctor then turned to the camera and made some kind of commentary. Those would be logical appeals that this is the way that the treatment's supposed to be carried out. So in those, make sure that you read through all of this information. This is an example article here, or example video here of that always ad. And then making sure it's the always like a girl ad is the actual name of it, hashtag like a girl. And in that, it's used for the example of the breakdown. The part 1 is the summary, 200 words. What's the name of the piece you're analyzing? Who created the piece and why? Make sure that you give me the actual name, and if you can, include the actual link. Don't leave these things in bold. Just put it in there at the top so that I can click onto that link and find your actual ad you used, so I know that we're talking apples to apples when I go to review your content. Who is the intended audience? Is it everyone, or is it just for a specific age category or other demographic? What rhetorical devices are used? Is there emotionally moving music, stimulating imagery, an expert delivering facts to the intended audience? If these are 3 rhetorical devices that you find in your ad, those are the 3 different topics of body paragraphs that you're going to present to your reader. Okay, for instance, topic sentence 1 might say the first rhetorical device that stood out was the emotionally moving music, and then you would go through your body paragraph giving examples of how the music appeals to the viewer, and even how that music might relate to the imagery. And if imagery is there, and as another one, that would be another topic of another body paragraph. Now, if you're going to refer the music to the imagery, you might want to start with body 1 being imagery, but that depends on your ad. So that, if you did that, then you could refer back to that imagery in your topic sentence or your body paragraph about the music. Offer examples of both the appeals that each device presents to the intended audience. Of the appeals in one sentence, give the argument that is made by the piece. Part 2, your full outline. These pieces are included down here at the bottom: the rubric, the summary and outline paper. Here's a student example paper, and then charting devices. On the rubric, it's pretty straightforward. This is for you guys to be able to view this and go over what the basic word count and all those things are, and it gives you a general to specific breakdown. Again, don't miss the examples that are included on these as well, where I talk about specifically how you would break these down and what the writing would include. You do give a works cited page at this when we get to drafting next week. You can use EasyBib or Nightsite to create that. That's not a problem. Just make sure that you follow these basics. Again, I want you guys to stick with just TV or YouTube ads. Don't, on here, I had political attack ads. I don't want you guys using those. Televised speeches, those ones are usually difficult. Stick with just these ads on these ones. Super Bowl ads and awareness campaigns are usually pretty fruitful. The general to specific, follow this and the examples on there. General statement would be, make a general statement about the category. If you're doing an ASPCA ad, you might make an opening statement that there are a number of awareness campaigns to be insightful for people about something going on in their country or county or whatever it is. And then the specific on that would be, you'd give a specific example of a different awareness campaign. Like you might say, for instance, the water protection outreach program does the following. And then the your topic section is where you introduce yours. So that would be, if you went the opening statement about an awareness, then the water awareness campaign. Here is where you would say, similarly, the commercial ad about the awareness campaign of the ASPCA gives the following, and then you'd say who made it and why, and at the end you would give what the commercial's argument was and what the rhetorical devices were that they used to make it. Here, Budweiser ad is used as an example one, right? On this, there's a template down here. Make sure you read through these different ones on there. And then this charting with devices. Students often find this helpful. If you can use this one, this is an example one based off there, but here with yours, if you can write down the devices, like one of my devices was imagery, and then my audience was everyone as far as I could tell, and the appeals are, I saw logos appeal and probably a pathos appeal on there. right off the bat, I would write down what my devices are that I'm going to be discussing and what their appeals are so far for myself, that I'm doing this to get those ideas straight. So those things I think are helpful for everybody. Read through these, make sure you get that in on time on Sunday, and I look forward to seeing these.